All right, let's get right into it. We usually think of blame as just a bad habit, right? Something to avoid. But what if it's way deeper than that? What if pointing the finger is actually a hardwired survival instinct, a reflex buried deep inside our brains? Today, we're going to unpack the fascinating and, yeah, sometimes dark psychology of why we blame.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? Or at least seen it. That split-second gut reaction. A mistake happens, and boom! The hunt isn't for a solution, it's for someone to blame. It's such a universal human moment, and it tells us something really profound about how we're built.
And that right there is the key. This isn't just about avoiding a little embarrassment. On a biological level, our brain can interpret being at fault as a literal threat, like a physical attack. It's not logical, it's completely primal. So to see how this actually plays out in a person's life, let's meet a character we're going to call Bhima. His story is a perfect, if painful, illustration of how a defense mechanism you learn as a kid can become a prison for you as an adult. So Bhima learned really early on that admitting a mistake meant severe punishment, meant losing his parents' affection. For him, honesty equaled pain and rejection. So what did he do? He built this fortress of blame around himself to stay safe. But now he's 35, and that same fortress is keeping out the one person he desperately wants to be close to, his wife. Anytime she brings up an issue, his old programming just kicks in. He deflects, he attacks, he plays the victim, he does anything to avoid feeling that "I was wrong" sensation. And he doesn't even realize he's destroying the very relationship he's trying to protect. Now look, Bhima's story isn't some rare, one-off thing. It's just an extreme example of a process that's happening inside all of our brains. So, why are we wired like this? Let's dig into the science. Brain imaging studies show us something absolutely wild. When we're faced with a negative event, or someone blames us for something, it's not the logical, thinking part of our brain that responds first. Oh no, it's the amygdala, the brain's ancient, primitive alarm system. It immediately triggers a fight or flight response, flooding our system with defensive emotions before we even have a chance to think it through. Your brain is literally preparing for battle, not a calm conversation. And this biological reaction leads to this, well, it's basically a glitch in our social programming. When someone else makes a mistake, we immediately jump to blaming their character. They're a jerk for cutting me off. But when we do the exact same thing, oh, well then we blame the situation. I had to cut them off. I was late. It's a massive, automatic, double standard. This glitch actually has a name. It's called the fundamental attribution error. It basically means we see other people's actions as a direct reflection of who they are as a person, but we see our own actions as a logical response to what's happening around us. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, but we almost never extend that same courtesy to other people.
And the data backs this up big time. One study found that when something bad happens involving someone else, we attribute it to their personality about 65% of the time. But when the same thing happens to us, we only blame our own character 44% of the time. We are consistently and significantly harder on others than we are on ourselves.
And wait, it gets better. There's another related bias that's always running in the background, the self-serving bias. Think of this as your brain's own personal PR manager. When we succeed, we take all the credit. I'm a genius. But when we fail, we pass the buck. The instructions were bad, my team didn't help me. It's an incredibly effective and sneaky way to protect our ego. And this is the core of the problem, really. Blame works. In the short term, it absolutely soothes our ego. It lessens those feelings of guilt and shame. It's like a psychological painkiller. But just like any addiction, it has a devastating long-term cost. By constantly pushing responsibility away, we rob ourselves of the chance to learn from our mistakes. We get trapped, repeating the same failures over and over again. So far, we've talked about what blame does inside our own heads. But what happens when these internal biases get unleashed on our relationships? Well, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. Take a look at this number, 93.6%. That is just staggering. That is the accuracy with which researcher Dr. John Gottman could predict which newlywed couples would get divorced, just by watching how they argued for a few minutes. He wasn't psychic, he just knew how to spot the poison. He called these toxic patterns the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And right at the very heart of these destructive habits is the same psychology of blame that we've been exploring. Let's just look at 2 of the most relevant horsemen. First, you've got defensiveness. This is blame shifting in its purest form. A partner brings up a complaint, and the defensive response isn't to listen, it's to counterattack or play the victim. The message is loud and clear. The problem isn't me, it's you. But even more toxic is contempt. This is when blame mutates into pure disgust. We're talking sarcasm, eye-rolling, mockery, any communication that says, "You are beneath me." Gottman found this to be the single greatest predictor of divorce. It is relational arsenic.
But blame isn't always just an unconscious defense mechanism. In its darkest form, it can be used as a weapon, a conscious strategy that manipulators use to dodge accountability and to control other people.
Psychologists have seen a pattern so common among abusers they actually gave it an acronym, DARVO. It stands for Deny, Attack, and Reverse Victim and Offender. The manipulator denies what they did, attacks the person for even daring to confront them, and then, masterfully, flips the entire situation around to make themselves look like the real victim. The actual victim can walk away from this feeling confused, guilty, and sometimes even apologizing for something they never even did. It's a brutal, brutal form of psychological warfare.
Okay, I know, this has all been pretty heavy. We've got our primitive brain wiring, all these cognitive biases, even manipulative tactics, all pushing us toward blame. It's really easy to feel like we're fighting a losing battle here. But are we? Are we really doomed to a life of this?
No, absolutely not. There is an antidote, and it's found by completely reframing what it means to be responsible. We have to stop seeing it as a burden and start seeing it for what it is, a superpower.
That fear we feel, right? That panic that makes us want to deflect and deny everything? It's real. Our brain is screaming at us that admitting fault is dangerous. But staying trapped in the blame game, well, that's the real prison. Owning your partner problem is not a death sentence for your ego. It's the first step toward true freedom. It gives you the power to actually change things.
And here's the crucial mental shift we all have to make. We have to separate our actions from our identity. Making a mistake doesn't mean you are a mistake. It doesn't make you a bad person. It is simply proof that you're human like the rest of us. And when you can really, truly accept that, the need to defend your ego with blame just melts away.
In a world that is just obsessed with pointing fingers, with being right, with winning at all costs, real strength, it looks completely different. It's not about having the last word or proving you were right all along. The bravest thing you can do is to lower your shield, look someone in the eye, and say those words. This simple sentence, it disarms conflict, it rebuilds trust, and it shatters the cycle of blame. It turns an opponent into a partner. It shifts the entire focus from who's at fault to how we can move forward together. That is not weakness. That is the ultimate strength.